Talking with you today about the academic cover letter. But before I do that, I was hoping to just hear a little bit from you. So if you wouldn't mind saying in the chat what discipline you're from and maybe when you're thinking about going on the job market really quickly. Don't be shy. Okay. All right. Occupational therapy, music, neuroscience, forensic science, higher ed admin, computer science, public health, public history, excellent, sociology, chemical engineering. So from all over, that's terrific. Okay, thank you very, very much. And just one more thing, if you guys wouldn't mind putting in the chat how you're feeling today. How you guys all feeling today? How's everybody doing? Good, yay, nice. Sleepy. It's the middle of the semester. It's tough. So I want to make sure everybody's feeling good. Okay, so I am going to share my screen. I have some slides that I wanted to share with you. I'm going to do presenter view. So I have I know that you can see my notes, this isn't kind of behind the curtain, as it might be if I were presenting to you in person, but that way, if there are any accessibility issues, you can see kind of what I'm talking about on the side in the notes area. I also just want to make sure that I kind of cover everything that I want to cover. So our agenda over the next, say, 55 minutes is here. So what I'll be doing is I'll be talking about something called PACT. PACT stands for Purpose, Audience, Conventions, and Trouble Spots, and I'll explain what that is and why I'm talking about it in the context of cover letters. Then we'll look at some samples together. I'll divide you into groups and ask you to respond to some questions about the samples that we examine. Then we'll discuss those samples as a large group. I'll take your questions and then we can talk about any takeaways that you might have. So that's our agenda. Okay, so as I mentioned, so for this workshop, we're going to be using something called PACT. PACT, again, stands for Purpose, Audience, Conventions, and Trouble Spots. And what PACT is it's a lens, it's a heuristic, and it's something that we can use as we're composing our cover letters. So we'll be discussing all of these things. So purpose, audience, conventions, and trouble spots, again, with respect to writing, composing a cover letter. So let's start with purpose. So, like you see over here, you get a new job, everybody gets a new job. So the purpose of a cover letter, your purpose might very well be, or it is, so that you can get a job, so that you can be employed in academia or another kind of maybe perhaps a research position. A cover letter, one way that I'm hoping that you think about it is as a kind of threshold genre. And what that means is that it's a document that gets you into the employment door. It will be the most important part of your job packet if you're putting it together a packet, because it'll be the first thing that a search committee sees from you. And it will be the thing that helps them determine whether they want to have further conversation with you to see if you and they are the kind of the right mutual fit. So when we ask ourselves what the purpose for writing is, yes, it's to get a job, but in order to get our foot in the door, we want to make sure that we appear credible, right? That we have the right credentials, the correct credentials for the position. We want to appear knowledgeable. So we want to make sure that if we're including a research agenda for our research position, that we know our field, we know the conversations. and we can be really kind of conversant in the research that we've done. But we also want to be to appear as though we're a good fit, right? So a search committee is going to be looking for someone who can fill a kind of gap in their department. So your cover letter is the opportunity to show them what kind of gap or how you might fill that gap. Okay, so audience, obvious, it's the hiring committee. So you won't know, you just won't know who's on the hiring committee. Sometimes in a job ad, there might be there might be some information about who to or who to address your letter to or your job search materials to. So that'd be the chair of the search committee. And that person is typically a senior faculty member. And then the other folks on the committee may be a mix of junior and other senior faculty. Sometimes it might be an outside faculty member, especially if you're going to be doing some interdisciplinary work. It could be administration. You might have a provost on your committee, again, depending on the nature of the position. So that search committee, regardless of who's on it, will appreciate seeing that you've tailored your cover letter to the position. So they might make note of whether or not you've done any research on the institution. It doesn't have to be, any extensive research that you show that you've done in the cover letter itself. It could be something as simple as acknowledging that you're applying to a small liberal arts school or a land grant institution. They also will want to see that you understand what kind of job that you're applying for. So if, for example, you're applying at an institution where your primary responsibilities will be teaching, if your cover letter focuses mostly on research, the search committee might assume that you're not necessarily interested in teaching or that you don't have a whole lot of experience with teaching. So these are all kind of things to consider. Okay, so your audience is going to expect that your letter follow specific conventions. And most cover letters include some version of the following. So if you're applying for a tenure track position, typically the information appears in this order. There's an introduction where I'll talk a little bit more about each individual piece in just a second, but there's the introduction, then there's a chapter on the dissertation, a chapter on your future research, a chapter on your paragraph on your teaching, a paragraph on your service, and a paragraph on your, or a paragraph for your conclusion. So in the introduction, you should include the position title and job number if it's relevant, if you see it. You should also include where you saw the job ad. Now, some folks might kind of wonder why to include this information on where they saw the ad. And the reason that you want to do this is because search chairs have to document where they've included information, or sorry, where they've posted the job ad. And so when you include where you saw the job ad, they can determine whether or not their outreach efforts have been successful. You should also include information about when you're completing your degree. So whether you're ABD, what your defense date is, maybe you're a postdoc, maybe you're an assistant professor already, maybe you're an associate professor. So current status is important. And then you want a sentence or two about why you're interested in that particular position. In your dissertation paragraph, that can be about 4 to 6 sentences. It's okay if each of those sentences outlines a chapter in your dissertation. In that section, you'll also want to situate the dissertation within your field. So how does it speak to unanswered questions? How does it add to the conversation? That kind of thing. And you'll also want to emphasize the parts of your dissertation that maybe speak to the job ad. Not necessarily all of your research will, but if some of it does, then it's worth mentioning, or it's worth emphasizing. Your search committee will also expect to see a future research section. Sometimes people place a future research section in the dissertation paragraph, and that's okay. But other times there's quite a lot of content to cover in future research. Um, so regardless of kind of where that information appears, you should talk about your research plans after your dissertation. Things like whether you're going to turn your dissertation into a book, whether you're thinking about maybe instead of a book turning it into kind of several articles. But you'll want to spend a little bit of time talking about your future plans. You might also want to talk about publications that you already have or any grants that you've been awarded. And so this is an important move for you to make because it shows the search committee that you're capable of maintaining a research agenda and attaining tenure in the future. Okay, so the last three sections. So in your teaching section, you should include a brief summary of your teaching philosophy, very brief. And then you should talk about how you incorporate that philosophy into your classrooms. So in this section, you can also talk about your learning goals for students. And you can even point to a specific example, like an assignment that illustrates your philosophy's goals. If you haven't taught before, you shouldn't worry about this section. A general philosophy is still expected, and you can talk about how you have employed that philosophy in maybe some mentoring relationships that you've had with graduates or undergraduate students, and or any other kinds of mentoring experiences that you've participated in, and or anything that you've kind of that that you've observed or that you've read with respect to teaching that you want to employ in your future classrooms. So in the service section, you'll want to talk about any committees, any task forces, or any initiatives, any graduate unions or organizations that you've been involved in. And this is because most faculty will have service responsibilities at their institutions. So it's important to show that if you have engaged in service work, that you let your committee know, let the search committee know. And the reason is that this evidence suggests that you're a hardworking, collaborative colleague who's interested in the success of in the success of the institution. So not just in one's own research agenda. Okay, and then in the conclusion, so this will probably be the shortest paragraph in your letter. And in this section, you should indicate if you have any additional materials that you've included in your application packet, so like your teaching portfolio, letters of recommendation, or references, your CV, or anything else, any philosophy statements or anything like that, diversity statements. You can also, if you don't have those, you can indicate that some of those documents are available upon request. Since search committees typically don't look at those other materials until you've passed the first round of screening and have been invited to a first interview. You'll want a polite closing, and then you'll also want to let readers know how to get a hold of you. So that is an overview of what to include. But PACT includes, right, purpose, audience, conventions, and trouble spots. There are some things that could get in the way of writing a successful cover letter. So the first is that your cover letter isn't customized. So I have seen cover letters that are fairly generic and not attentive to the position itself. So I served on a search committee for a faculty position in English at Potomac State. At Potomac State, the faculty there and also at Tech are tenured based on their teaching portfolio. So I read several letters that spoke mostly of research and very little about teaching. And so those letters didn't tell me as a search committee member, nor did they tell the other search committee members what kind of teacher, what interest the person had in teaching. And so those letters were discarded pretty quickly. Now, I understand why people don't customize their letters, especially if they're applying for lots of different jobs. But I do recommend that you do this, especially for the jobs that you really, really want, or the ones that you're especially qualified for. Um, Other trouble spots, the tone in the letters is too casual. I've seen folks talk about their dogs and which is, I have a dog. I love dogs. I've read letters where people talk about some they kind of wax poetic about Appalachia, which is like, nice, I suppose, but not appropriate for a cover letter. Some other trouble spots, a cover letter might contain errors. Errors including like grammatical errors. But the most egregious error that I have encountered is a cover letter that has been addressed to the wrong person. So someone is applying for our job, but they address it to someone else. They refer to another position in the body of their letter. So it's pretty clear that the writer has not proofread. So it's really unfortunate with those letters because those even if the person is perfectly well qualified, if there are a lot of applicants, then that kind of mistake would put someone in the will not interview category. Other things, so modifying margins and font size to account for a cover letter being too long or too short. So typically they should be about 2 pages. I have seen some cover letters bleed onto the 3rd page, and that's been okay. But I would say stick to 2 pages, 1.5 at least to 2. And then the other problem is if a cover letter sounds too much like a CV. So there's a lot of listing of accomplishments, but nothing that really kind of tells me why those accomplishments are important within the context of the position itself. Okay, so I am taking us out of, okay, you can still see this. I'm taking us out of, I might for a second take us out of sharing so that I can kind of see what I'm doing. And Winda, oh, there we are. Kind of lose sight of things. Doesn't matter how many times I use Zoom, kind of get stuck. Okay, so I have created a Google folder. And the folder includes this, the slideshow that I just shared, as well as some other documents. So what I'm going to do is share that link with you, and I want to make sure everyone can access it. So I'm putting it in the chat. Okay, so if you wouldn't mind clicking on it, and then if you can get into it, if you would give me a thumbs up, that would be terrific. I don't see any thumbs up. That makes me nervous. 1 thumb, yeah. Okay, 2 thumbs up. Does that mean everyone else is sleeping, or is everyone if you're not sleeping or you're not doing laundry? Yeah, if I could see. Okay, awesome. 1 file rather than a folder. Thank you. Let me see what's what. Oh, I got it. All right. Let's try this again. Thanks for that. Let me see. Let's try this. All right, now do you see there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 documents in the folder? 1, thumbs up. Yes, 5?
It says unit access.
I love it. Thanks, Winda. Okay, anyone with a link? Here we go. One more time. Okay. Did it work that time? All right. It worked for Kathy. It worked for Katie.
It works now.
Hooray. Okay. Thanks, Winda. Okay. So I am going to put you into groups, and I am putting directions here. Okay, so here are the directions in the chat, but let me talk through them first. So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. What I'd like you to do is select one of the cover letters in the folder. Okay, so there's a social sciences cover letter, a STEM cover letter, and a humanities cover letter. Just choose one. And I'd like you to read it. And in your groups, identify places where the writer is attentive to PACT, purpose audience conventions, but also discuss where they might run into some trouble. Okay, and then does everyone clear? Everybody clear on the directions? Yes? Awesome. Okay. Juliana, you're going to speak for the group. Okay, so I am creating, how many people are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 20. So I will make 5 breakout rooms. Okay, so 5 breakout rooms, I'm making them now. It's okay, Juliana, you can just type in the chat. Okay, so anybody who doesn't have a mic, just let your folks know, let your group members know, and then just type in the chat. Okay, here you go. I'm opening all rooms. Hi, Mercy Lynette. Are you new to the webinar or workshop?
Yes, I am.
Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you in a breakout room. How do I do that? Let me say how to put you unassigned. There you are. Or I'm going to assign you to room 1. And the folks in room 1 will tell you where to go. Did you get the invitation to the breakout room?
Yes.
Okay. Alrighty, I'm going to post the link that I just shared with everybody so you have access to the same thing. Okay?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Oops. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I think you guys were still probably talking when I cut you off, but I want to make sure that we get the opportunity to kind of talk about these as a group. And you'll have access to the folder beyond and outside of this workshop, so you can always kind of take a look at things on your own as well. Did any groups look at the humanities letter? Humanities letter. Yours did? Okay.
Yes, we
Kathy?
did. Oh,
Okay, Kat.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
Oh, it's okay. If both groups did, that's terrific. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna share that one with us so we can all take a look at it together. So what were some of the things for the groups who looked at the humanities letter? What were some of the things that you made note of?
Well, we noted that first of all, the person did well, yes, did well to talk about their, dissertation, what they are going to do with the dissertation, etc. At some point, though, we felt that they were getting too detailed, like too wordy. Yeah, we are not sure he or she captured what they are doing at the moment. Most of it was about the past.
Yeah, so this one gets really deep into the weeds on right onto their on their research, and I think you're right. So one of the nice things about this letter is that it is very detailed and that it indicates that the writer knows a whole heck of a lot about their particular area. But there might be a little bit too much. What other things did you all know? How about the other group? What did you all say?
One of the things that we talked about really briefly was that it is difficult not being in this particular area to
Sure.
know if it was appropriate for the area. So I think it would be helpful to be able to see, to really explore more cover letters for the type of position that we are specifically looking for in the department that we're looking at. Because we weren't really sure if this was relevant information for German literature if you're not familiar with that position.
I mean, I think that's a good point. So I think that one good rule of thumb is not to assume that your committee knows everything about your area that you know. And so you probably would explain a little bit more or provide a little bit more context than about your research than you would at say a conference, a specialized academic conference, right, where your colleagues would know or be intimately familiar with the conversation. So I think that the point you raise is good, and I think that one of the things that I wish that I had, but I don't, is alongside these cover letters is the job ad, because those can really help one determine, or those one could really help one determine whether or not this writer was hitting the marks that they needed to hit. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just have one question, actually, one confusion. In some templates, I saw that they suggest to write down my address on the top left of the letter, and then date, and then the address and other issues of the organizations where I'm applying to, and then start writing the letter. But here I see that you have started with addressing the organization where somebody is applying to. So do you have any suggestion that what should be more appropriate or more ideal?
Yep. So what most folks end up doing is using their institution's letterhead. Right. So if you're a graduate student at West Virginia University, it's perfectly appropriate for you to use the letterhead from your department. And then and that already has the, that has your institutional affiliation, and that has the department address. And then what you might do, so in the last paragraph would be to indicate where the search committee, or how the search committee could get a hold of you. So you might include your phone number, right, and an email address. That would be perfectly appropriate. You're also going to have that information on your curriculum vitae. So if you're not using department letterhead, then I would include that your information at the top, and then the institution, information, the address, and who the material
Thank you
is
so much.
directed to.
Thank
Sure,
you.
you
Yeah.
bet. Okay. Any other comments about this particular cover letter? Let's see if this one is okay. Well, let's take a look at the social sciences cover letter. Were there folks who took a look at the social sciences cover letter? No groups took a look. So it was all STEM. Was it all STEM? Okay. Well, maybe the social sciences one is one we could take a look at together. But the STEM cover letter. So what were some of the things that you noticed about the STEM cover letter for the folks who looked at that one?
The cover letter, hi, sorry.
Yes, no, you're
good. The cover letter looked really great, because I think the things you mentioned, this person did everything. The cover letter is 2 pages, 1.5 pages. And then this cover letter, they explicitly said that why he wants to teach, why he or she wants to teach, and what is their credentials, what is their teaching philosophy, and briefly mentioned like what dissertation they did. I thought that it was like, and also the language was very simple. The physics, the topic of the dissertation, it was written in very simple English so that a layperson could understand. I thought overall this cover letter did a great job.
Okay, great. Other comments? Anyone else? Any other groups? So this letter focuses on a teaching position. And so there's a great deal of emphasis in this letter on teaching. So there, the author does mention their research, but it's definitely not the focus of the letter. And that's, again, perfectly appropriate to the position, so it's well tailored. Now, this writer could not submit the same letter to an R1 institution, that they would have to include more about their research. And it would have to be more balanced in terms of research, teaching, and service. Okay, so any other comments about this one? Okay. So the social sciences letter, it does the same kinds of things that the other letters do. There's the opening paragraph about the dissertation. So the paragraph 2 is kind of an overview of the dissertation, and then the next paragraph is a chapter by chapter overview. Then the writer talks about their research interests. There's kind of an extension, or there's a teaching paragraph, a lengthy teaching paragraph, and some discussion of their service. The only thing that this writer does that is potentially problematic is that they list the courses that they would like to teach, or they, not specific courses necessarily, but kind of general broad themes, the course kind of themes that they'd like to teach in a particular department. And that's, that could work, but that also might not work because the search committee, or the department rather, or program might already have people to teach those courses, and or they might not have the resources to develop those courses. So it's a little bit of a gamble to indicate what classes you could teach at a particular institution. So that's the only comment that I would make about this particular letter. Okay. I'm going to go back to my slides really quickly. Stop sharing this. And, thank you very much for adding comments in the chat. I did not see them as I was presenting or using the screen sharing. Okay. So what questions, I'll share in a second. What questions do you all have for me? Or what questions do you have about the cover letter after our conversation and after looking at some examples? You
I
can
have
put
a-
your yeah, go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, I have a quick question. It looks like to me that the assumption is that everybody applying, with these cover letters are applying for faculty positions. What if you want to go into industry?
Industry cover letters are different. And Sandra, what I can do is I can send you some resources. And if anybody else wants some resources too, just shoot me a quick message in the chat. But those are going to be structured differently. Yes. So these are for a faculty or faculty equivalent, or even like professional staff positions at an institution. But I'm happy to send you information about that separately. If you just put your email in the chat, I can do that.
Thank you.
You bet.
I have one other question. So in postdoctoral research after the dissertation. So in these, like, if I want to do a postdoctoral research, then what other things I should add? Like, it should be more research focused, and like I should also, should I like also highlight that why I would want to work, that kind of thing? Like,
Yeah,
how would
yes. Yep. So definitely more of a research emphasis, and more, I would say more of an emphasis on the specific postdoc and the institution itself. So an institution is going to be able, a specific institution offering a postdoc is offering it because they can provide specific resources to a student. So, the postdocs all have a kind of a specific focus, more specific sometimes than faculty positions, because faculty positions can seem kind of vague. The cover letters, the job advertisements can seem vague. And sometimes that's because faculty or the hiring committees or the departments don't really know what they want. And so they're casting a really wide net. And will gravitate towards cover letters that they're attracted to. So that can be tough, but postdocs always seem a little bit more specific than that. So in the folder that I've provided, the link, there is a chapter, and it's called Job Hunting Correspondence, and it's from a book on, and I have a link in the in the slides to it. So it's an ebook that the library has access to. But on in that job hunting correspondence chapter, they do have examples of postdoc letters. So I'd suggest you take a look at those too.
Thank you so much.
You bet. What other questions can I answer for you all? Industry cover, okay.
Now, there's also a question whether you're going to share with everyone your PowerPoint.
Yeah, so I'm happy to do that. Winda, is there a way for you to distribute it?
Yes, I mean, if you can send me the PowerPoint, also the resources for that
Yeah.
cover letter industry, and
I'm
will
happy
send
to
it
do that.
yeah.
I'm
It's
happy to do
already,
that.
it's ready on the Google link you shared. That's the very first
Yeah,
one.
so if right, so that's not going anywhere. You know, you all will always have access to that. So, but I will say that if you well, I won't say if, it's always a good idea to make copies of things, just in case on the off chance that something is moved, you know, from one area to another. And that's just so that you have it locally. Any other questions that I can answer for you all? Okay, I am going to point you to a couple of additional resources. So I'm going to share my screen again so you can see the slides. Actually, one second. Okay. So, well, this is fine. There, I do, on the slides, there is a template. It's a pretty basic template, outlines what goes in each paragraph. You're certainly welcome to use that. I got that from the UNC Charlotte Writing Center. There is a link in the notes, but there's also a link a few slides down. You're always, always, always welcome to visit the Eberly Writing Studio. If you're working on job search materials, I have graduate student consultants who would be more than happy to provide feedback on not just your cover letter, but your teaching portfolio if you've got one, or any other job search documents, any diversity statements or teaching philosophies or any of those kinds of things. And so there's a QR code that will take you right to our webpage where you can make an appointment. And then the last thing, these are additional resources. Some of them I referenced in the slides, but then others of them are extensions of other kinds of things. So like the UCLA Career Services cover letter template, that provides some information that might speak to you better than the UNC Charlotte information. There's also information about CVs in addition to cover letters on the in this Harvard resource. And then there's the chapter again. So so everything that I used is there for you to also use. And then that's all I have. So thank you very, very much.